recent attempts to expand our dialogue and cooperation with the CCP, I think one of the things that I've noticed is there appears to be a lack of accountability. We've had some very high-profile incidents recently. Our ranking member highlighted a few of those, but I think we can all agree the status quo is too dangerous to leave in place. And the PLA has been more reactive than ever. They've been blatantly and provocatively violating our airspace. They've challenged us in the South China Sea, harassing the U.S. and allied vessels as well. So from a diplomatic standpoint, it really seems like we are sending our representatives there to court China despite these recent provocations without leaving with accountability. Having a clear line of communication is important. I think we can all agree that we need to be talking to each other, but it really feels one-sided, and the CCP doesn't seem to be interested in really reducing any of these tensions. So I think really accountability is what we are looking for. We are looking for strength and a posture that matches that. So my first question is for Mr. Crittenbrink. Would you be able to comment on kind of two elements at play here? Did the administration have to make any concessions to get into the room with our diplomatic ventures recently with PRC officials? And when clearly the Chinese are not willing to change tactics, why would we continue that strategy if they're not going to meet us at the table?
Congresswoman, I can absolutely assure you, we made no concessions to get meetings. That is not how we operate. We went into these meetings with a sense of confidence and strength. We raised these issues very directly. Many of those conversations were tense. We were quite clear about what we are going to continue to do. So I think that kind of communication is important, ma'am, but I would also say what's also important, we have to continue to fly, sail, and operate anywhere international law allows, and we will continue to do so.
Did the Secretary ask the Chinese authorities about these provocations in the South China Sea? Did they ask about the spy balloon? Did they try to hold them accountable for these blatant provocations to the United States?
He made absolutely clear how unacceptable these actions are. Again, on the balloon, we protested the action, demanded it never happen again, then we shot it down. We also publicized the global nature of the Chinese spy balloon program. And in terms of these provocative actions, perhaps Dr. Ratner wants to respond to them as well, but the Secretary was absolutely crystal clear how unacceptable they are, how dangerous they are. He also indicated, again, we will continue to operate everywhere that
Did he communicate that there will be repercussions if these kinds of actions continue to happen?
He communicated that what China is doing is dangerous and irresponsible, and it will not change our operations.
Yeah. This is more than just speak softly and carry a big stick. We need to speak loudly and carry a big stick, and I think that's what's missing from these conversations. So I would encourage you to carry that message to the secretaries that we can be diplomatic and we can have these conversations, but peace through strength means that these bullies need to respect that strength. My next question is for Ms. Kendler. One concern I continue to hear about from my constituents and businesses is the aggressive and continued attacks on our IP and theft there. We know it's been happening for decades, and we've really let offenders in China kind of take advantage of our lack of deterrence and consequences for that theft. And when they've gone after our tech industry, we've seen it from startups all the way up to our larger scale businesses. I think it's a top-of-mind concern across industry and across government, and I know that your work at BIS obviously has kind of backed this up as well, and the mission is that U.S. security cannot be achieved without the active cooperation of the private sector, which today controls a greater share of critical U.S. resources than in the past. And so I think it's imperative that we do not continue to fail our tech industry and our private sector here, but I want to talk about Huawei, because when we know companies like Huawei, who have dozens of subsidiaries and affiliates here in the United States, many of them are operating here, I think we need to be very clear-eyed about their intentions. So why are we not reciprocating their targeted IP theft with targeted repercussions? And I would ask you to just elaborate on what you see as the next path and what we can maybe do as a committee to really take action there.
Well, I draw in particular on my experience at the Justice Department here and the prosecutions that you see of IP theft, especially IP theft that's driven by state-sponsored activity, sort of economic espionage, as opposed to just straight-up IP theft, corporate theft. And my experience certainly is that the Justice Department is very focused on that effort, and I'd urge you to speak with them and law enforcement agencies about that. When it comes to tech transfers controlled by the Bureau of Industry and Security, we have a vigorous export control enforcement approach when controlled technologies are illicitly acquired by Chinese actors who couldn't get them through lawful means, we are very serious about that approach. And I'd be happy to take questions from my export enforcement colleagues to address.
If you could follow up with our office with some of the steps that you're taking in this space, that would be much appreciated. And again, any recommendations to the committee on steps we can take. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield back.
Ms.